Namaskar. Welcome to this session of Straight Drive. I am Sudhanshu Mani. I'll begin with the China situation, friends. The Corps Commander level talks, the third last month on 30th June, was held and it was a marathon meeting. The resolve to de-escalate, disengage was repeated. As I said earlier, as the talks are on, we should hold our peace. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the massive buildup of troops along the LAC by China. Even more alarming is that even Pakistan has sent 2 divisions to the Gilgit-Baltistan border along the LOC. Now, is Pakistan trying to fish in troubled waters? Or is it China has told its vassal state Pakistan to engage in its own pinpricks? Well, China has the pretensions of being a world power, and this would be quite a come down if they have to ask Pakistan to do their tricks. Experts differ on the matter, but the majority feels that it is more posturing and not military maneuver to further escalate the crisis. But in any case, I will not jump the gun, and I would believe that India must stand firm this time without complacence and show this bully China that we have the capacity to give them a bloody nose, as we have already showed, and call their bluff. It is doubted by many experts whether China would engage in any adventurism. In any case, on 3rd of July, PM, while speaking at Niumu to the troops, sent a very strong but subtle message that while we are affording non-military options, diplomatic options to China, they should take that and not think of any adventure. As it is, things are in the realm of speculation at present, and we should, as I said, wait and watch. On 30th June, in PM's address, the PM thanked the farmers. Well, it is very creditable indeed that in all the shambles in economy today, with manufacturing and services in doldrums, the agricultural sector stands tall. Our villages also have to be growth engines towards self-reliance. Atmanirbhar. This government has been saying that they intend to double the income of farmers. Well, do the farmers know about it? Are they motivated? Or the farmers are just waiting that the government would wave a magic wand and their income would get doubled? At the same time, is the government thinking that they have done policy changes and some effort to build capacities, and that itself would result in doubling of incomes? There is a disconnect between government's intentions and the ground reality. There is a lack of communication also at ground level with the farmers. Well, let's talk about the amendment of the Essential Commodities Act and Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee Acts and the implications. Well, these acts actually told the farmers where to sell. They restricted transportation, even prices, even confiscation of produce was possible. The farmers have been freed of that, and it's a step towards localized decision making, their access to a national common market, and even export to global market. Businesses are now encouraged to invest in the supply chain in agribusiness without being the fear of getting bracketed as a hoarder. So these are positive messages. So far, the agricultural sector has been viewed in a myopic manner as a means to control inflation for supplies of wage goods and supply of surplus labor for industrialization and urbanization. Whereas agriculture has to be viewed as a sector in its own right. The cut into market access, very episodic. It may give a temporary relief from the pain to consumers, but it causes severe dent in the farmers' capacities. With the amendment of these acts, there is a possibility to sell produce outside the APMC mandis, and this is something which should bring in long-term gains, not immediate. For example, even in milk sector, the cooperative dairies did not procure directly from the farmers or producers, although there were hardly any APMC type regulations. So this mandi monopoly continues, and also continues with it is layers of intermediaries. That has been our bane. At this point, let me bring in the announcement by the PM of extension of the free ration scheme for another 5 months under the Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. 5 kg grain per head to 80 crore people with an MSP of rupees 20 approximately per kg. This would be about 8,000 crores for 1 month. For 5 months, rupees 40,000 crore. Add another 6,000-7,000 crore for the dal. The total works out to between rupees 45,000 to 50,000 crores. Now, where is the balance 40,000 crore? Is it getting spent in the distribution system and other hidden subsidies, other hidden works? Well, if it is, then it's a very large sum. That brings us to the question is, do we really need to give free grains to 80 crore people? Is it not time that we think of giving grains in a better manner to poorest of the poor? Let's say, I'm hazarding a guess here because the BPL numbers are always debatable. Let's say 20 crore people. And to the rest, if the intention is to give them this subsidy, why not use DBT to transfer funds directly? This would reduce the distribution side expenditure and infrastructure, and we can improve the services using the money which is saved. Well, for food security and the fear of hoarding and other corrupt practices, we have to keep a procurement and distribution system in place. I'm not debating that. I'm only saying there is a scope to reduce the scope, there is a scope to reduce the extent, and leverage the availability of direct bank transfer so the people get the money directly and then they can choose to buy whichever grain they want. Something like what is the system for LPG today. This would remove the layers of inefficiency and corruption in the distribution. It also brings me to the question of the farmer producer company and farmer producer organization. The progress since 2003, when FPCs were announced, has been rather tardy. It has not acted as a catalyst towards self-reliance of our villages and rural economy. So added to the reforms of amendment to these acts, a clear direction has to be given towards success of FPCs. FPCs are basically a hybrid between a professionally managed company and a cooperative, whereas FPOs include the cooperatives as well. So FPCs have to be run professionally, and they have to collectively leverage production as well as their marketing strength. It requires technical and managerial expertise for better agricultural practices, seed production, even branding, forward and backward linkages, or rather an ecosystem which extends from the farm to the faraway market, including emergency consumer production, credit, availability of retail services for inputs in agriculture, storage, transportations. Somewhat technical matters, and simple farmers may find it a little daunting. That's why political games start, and we have all these cooperatives which have not been that successful in bringing prosperity to the farmers. We need strong hand-holding by the local authorities and capable institutions, preferably from the corporate sector towards the agro-business. Infusion of private equity, even venture capital, to support procurement directly, like MSP. We can also have funding by government towards infrastructure in grading, sorting, packaging, branding, storage, transportation, marketing, and also the statutory compliances for these FPCs have to be made liberal. For delivery of all the agricultural related schemes, as far as possible, should be through these FPOs. A single window for small farming sector. If this FPC model succeeds, I believe it can transform our rural economy. And this is the time when agricultural sector is doing so well to give a new fillip to this. The Prime Minister also thanked the taxpayers. But that is something I did not fully understand as to what was the import in that. You see, the tax collections are down by 30-35%, and there is a very remote possibility that we would touch even the levels of collection last year, let alone the budgeted collection this year, thanks to largely to the COVID phenomena. Perhaps the Prime Minister should have informed the listeners that any expectations they have of the price of petrol and diesel going down are all false, because simply sale of petrol and diesel is one area where government is mopping up revenue, and they would not like to give that up in this era of such a sluggish tax collection. Well, be that as it may, I should now go to one aspect which the PM did not speak about, but the whole country is speaking about. That is about the ban on the 59 Chinese mobile apps. I had earlier called the request by all and sundry to delete your Chinese apps a rather infantile patriotism. So far so good, but now the government has gone ahead and banned these apps. And we have to now support it because this is an action which is being taken to counter the machinations of our wily neighbor along our borders. So banning is fine, that's just the beginning, but the hard work starts now. Friends, we have these giant companies in tech sector like Infosys, HCL, Tech Mahindra, TCS, Wipro, and a million more IT companies and startups, and we have these giant telephony companies. But why is it that we don't have our own popular apps? Let's look at TikTok. In a matter of few years, it has gone to a valuation of 100 billions. Revenues in India are minuscule. They have large revenues from USA, but it's not the revenue but the potential of the app which matters. Today, nearly 25% of their users, before it was banned, were Indians. So it is the reach which counts, and the reach takes time to mature. Do our large corporate companies in these sectors, do they have no stomach for the long haul? Don't they have a vision beyond the software services provision to something more meaningful? May not bring revenues, but brings great future along with it. In this area, we cannot even blame the government because the developments in software sector in India, I would say, has largely been in spite of and not because of the government. Isn't it an irony that our soldiers fight at the border to prevent our sovereignty, whereas we don't have real independence in the virtual world? We are all prisoners of WhatsApp, Facebook, Google. They overwhelm us. China did not allow them. They duplicated these applications, made their own, and with such a large base, made them really successful. And at the same time, they had these large army of app writers, which are now selling all over the world. Even to ban these Chinese apps, we have to request Google and Apple to delete them from their app stores. What if they refused? Banning Google and Apple and Facebook is unthinkable today, isn't it? Let's not get into this mire of Indians not creating anything from scratch, and that our corporate world has really made a mark in the world only in service-based situations and hardly any homegrown products, that we don't have a conducive ecosystem for innovation and development. Well, this discussion can go on, and it has really affected our manufacturing and even services sector. We all know the hollowness of Make in India, which doesn't really encourage homegrown innovations. But that's more true for, let's say, consumer electronics, solar equipment, even metro rail projects and so on. So we will not fall prey to that discussion this time. We have to regain the lost digital territory, and it involves a big effort. It's not only apps, I would say even multiple application softwares, even search engines and browsers. with the name Indian on them. These would be driven more and more by artificial intelligence and demand more accuracy, have to be more conversational. We don't have a dearth of innovators who can bring this about. All we need is strong corporate long-term vision. The government can provide some fiscal sops, and it can even mandate that successful products can be used in large scale by the government. That can bring in large numbers. But even if I sound cynical, today is a situation that a competition for these app developers has been crippled because of the ban on Chinese apps. It is therefore a great platform, a great opportunity to take up these developments. If we are able to develop even 5 such brilliant apps, it will boost the confidence of our innovators a great deal. It will go a long way towards self-reliant India, which is the goal of our future. And above all, it will really make India technologically sovereign. Are the Indian IT sector companies and the telephony sector companies ready for this challenge? That's the question today. Thank you very much.